Jim Beam, you got some explaining to do.
Bourbon don't freeze.
So your Jim Beam and your Crown Royal have both frozen. I think before you start asking them why it's freezing, that you might ask your teenager why it's freezing first.
It was looking good and smelling good and tasting good. We got to dig in and start eating now.
It is good, but you got to hurry because the bus is running. It's getting close to game time. We got to get headed for the Silver Dome, and we just like to say happy Thanksgiving to you guys back in the studio.
Then over there, we have the turkey. See, now here's the turkey. We got 1 leg, 2 legs, 3 legs, 4 legs, 5 legs, 6 legs.
Yeah. Picture. That is it.
And you see, you cut it like right down here. See, and then this is what it looks like inside. See, so you got turkey, then duck, and then dressing, and then chicken.
Oh.
And then you just have to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the Crown.
Yeah, howdy, hi, and how the hell are you? Welcome to the Armchair Quarterbacks sports page where we take you out to the ball game and get you caught up in the world of sports in a flash. Now, we've been doing these on Mondays and Thursdays with the big show on Fridays. That's going to change a little bit as we get through and go towards this football season coming to an end. The plan is we're going to do the Friday show as normally scheduled, 5 p.m. Eastern, live on YouTube. Saturday, I'm going to get together with the guys, and I don't know the time yet, but we're going to try to do an NFL show on Saturdays all throughout the playoffs leading up, because I don't want to do one after the games have started on Sunday morning like we normally do. And our last fantasy football show is going to be this Sunday, January the 2nd. With that being championship weekend, there's no real reason to do a fantasy football show. I know some people still do some of this stuff, but we're not going to do a fantasy football show when the fantasy football playoffs are over with. So the plan is to do some kind of an NFL show on Saturdays before the kickoff of the NFL weekend, because starting next weekend on January 8th, your NFL slate, there's going to be at least 2 games every Sunday until we get to the AFC and NFC championship games in late January. So that's the game plan. Friday night show, Saturday night show, and then I will do a recap, take me out to the, or excuse me, we've renamed it the sports page, but as we take you out to the ball game. So let's go ahead and dive in to what's on hand on this week as we come to you here on Thursday night going into Friday morning. If you watched it earlier, North Carolina got absolutely ran out of the building by South Carolina. South Carolina, not a good football team, not a good offense, but that North Carolina defense was absolutely atrocious. Could not stop South Carolina from doing the basic things, running straight at them. And the Music City Bowl has been a shootout. So I've seen this trend a lot on Twitter where some of the bigger names are arguing back and forth on whether these bowl games are good or not, or whether we need them or not. My take is simple as this. What the hell does it do? Does it really hurt you to have these games played? If you don't want to watch them, don't watch them. And if you're saying, well, you're not interested, so they shouldn't play them, with that in mind, let's not play another damn WNBA game for the rest of time. Because nobody watches that. Let's not play the NWSL. What does it hurt that they're playing the games as long as it can be financially done and people are having a good time? Who the hell cares? With that in mind, there's a lot of hockey games and a lot of NBA games on the slate during the regular season that nobody's watching, paying attention to, getting anything out of? You have about as much effort in some of these bowl games as you do in a regular season basketball game. What the hell does it matter to you? If you want to watch, watch. If you don't want to watch, the numbers will dictate it. I think it's just the way for people who are pro playoff expansion to whine and moan via social media. And okay, I get that a lot of people do want the expanded playoffs. I do as well. But it's not hurting anything to have the playoffs at 4 right now. It's not hurting anything to have multiple bowl games. Some that, hey, let's be honest, most of them, a lot of us aren't watching. But I enjoyed the Music City Bowl. It was a fun game. Was the Mayo Bowl a good game? No, it was terrible. It was boring. But that was just the matchup. So what I'm more up in arms about is them canceling every damn game left and right because there's a handful of COVIDs. And kudos to the NFL, by the way, for stepping up and changing their protocols where guys can get back in much faster, because this is not the same variant we dealt with last year. And COVID, as we know it, or as we knew it, it's going away. It's going away. So I just don't see why everyone's got to get up in arms and bitch and moan about, well, we can't. Why do we have so many football games? Who the hell cares? This has been the tradition for years. Yeah, would it be a little more fun if you had about 20 to 25 and cut out some of the the bozo matchups? Could we have lived without Central Florida and the Gators? Yeah, I mean, it was a terrible matchup. But those fan bases enjoyed it, so what the hell does it matter to you? So, and look, as a Florida State fan, I would have enjoyed seeing us in a bowl game, getting to see us play one more time. I enjoy the bowl season. And until you expand it, you need to have several bowls. Even if you go to 8, I still want the bowl games. We don't go to 8 and then just eliminate down to like 10 extra bowl games, which is what some have been talking about. That's absurd. College football is not the National Football League. It's not the NBA. It's not the NHL. It's not Major League Baseball. These aren't professional teams. These are college teams that are being rewarded at the end of the year, and their fan bases will go and travel and spend money in hotels and generate money in these cities. So everybody wins, and you got these damn idiots who are just complaining left and right. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. So we move on from that, but I just want to get my 2 cents in. Speaking of college football, Michigan defensive back Daxton Hill, an all Big Ten selection. He is currently not in Miami with the Wolverines, who are set to take on the Georgia Bulldogs Friday. And according to Harbaugh, he's working through something right now. We'll know more later on whether he'll be able to play. Hill's a sophomore. He has 2 interceptions, tied with the team lead for pass breakups with 7. Both quarterback Cade McNamara and offensive lineman Andrew Vastardis both declined comment when asked about Hill's availability. That's a big deal. Look, Michigan has one of the best college football defenses in the country, ranking 4th among FBS in points allowed per game. And, of course, we all know how good Georgia's defense has been all year if you eliminate the SEC title game where they got ran out of the building. Looks like it could be Big Ben's last home game Monday night when the Steelers take on the Browns. He's a free agent. I think more than likely he's going to retire, then move on to another team. Big Ben hasn't looked like Big Ben in 2 or 3 seasons now. And it's just father time catching up with him. I'm hoping that you at least get a really good standing ovation from the Pittsburgh crowd, whether that's before or after the game. But at some point, acknowledge the great career that he has had. I know a lot of people don't like him for certain things he was accused of off the field, but he was found innocent. Long story short, if you're a Steeler fan, what he's brought to that franchise over the last several years, I think you got to appreciate that. Now, there's some pretty good college football games going on Friday. Obviously, you got the playoffs. We'll get into that in a second. But before that, Wake Forest is going to play Rutgers. Of course, this is a really quick put together. Rutgers and Wake Forest, as those two teams are playing each other because of the last-minute COVID ad. Remember, Rutgers was added to Wake Forest when Texas A&M backed out of the Tax Slayer Bowl, and they were added about a week ago. And then also the traditional New Year's Eve Bowl, 2 p.m. Eastern on CBS, the Sun Bowl. You've got Washington State versus Central Michigan, and Washington State was supposed to play, I believe that was the one that Miami was in. So that was a last-minute ad as well. And we were supposed to have the Arizona Bowl. That was, I guess it was the first time that Barstool Sports was on the line for putting their name on a bowl. Well, it's been canceled due to COVID. Now, you still have at 3:30 is when the rubber meets the road. Cincinnati, 2-touchdown underdog against Alabama. We'll get into the lines here in a minute. And then Georgia, Michigan at 7:30. Also on Saturday, don't sleep on the fact you've got a pretty good slate of New Year's Day games, even though they don't mean anything nationally. I still think college football really screwed the pooch. They should have put those damn games on New Year's Day. What in the hell were they doing? It makes absolutely no sense. Put the games on New Year's Day. Work the traditional New Year's Day bowls around that. I think America would have been a lot happier. Instead, you've got a game kicking off at 3:30 on Friday. There are people out there that are still going to be working on Friday. See, it just doesn't make sense. But you do have some pretty interesting matchups. You got Penn State, Arkansas in the Outback Bowl at noon. Iowa, Kentucky, that should be fun at 1 p.m. on ABC. That should be a hard-hitting game, too. Really good defenses. Notre Dame, Oklahoma State. That should be a fun game there, 1 p.m. And it's the first chance for Notre Dame's new head coach to. Look, he's being promoted within, so there's nothing really changing about this. Speaking of that, you see Brian Kelly, he finally named an offensive coordinator. Still doesn't have a defensive coordinator. The folks in Baton Rouge are getting restless. They're a little worried about what the hell is going on there. I think it's because Kelly was waiting for the NFL window of December 28th to open up so that he could talk to different coaches, because I think he's going to try to build that way, but we'll see what happens. And then at 5 o'clock, the Rose Bowl, Ohio State versus Utah. I think that's a mismatch. I assume Ohio State is going to just absolutely smash the hell out of Utah. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder going into that game after losing to Michigan the way they did. And then Ole Miss Baylor, the Sugar Bowl, 8:45 Saturday night. Yeah. That could be a good game. But first of all, can we get the damn game going before 8:45? It's not even a national title game. Who's going to stay up till 1 a.m. to watch a so-so matchup? Not I. I'm going to be getting up early for the NFL on Sunday, but that's what you have left in the College Bowl action. And there is a random game on Tuesday night, 9 o'clock Eastern. Why it's being played so late, the Tax Act Texas Bowl, LSU and Kansas State. So if that interests you, that will be on Tuesday night. I think I'm more likely just to take a break from football on that Tuesday night and get ready for the final week of the NFL season. But let's go ahead and look at the lines real quick for the college football playoffs. You're looking at a couple of interesting lines tomorrow, because when it's all said and done, I think a lot of people want to know, does Cincinnati have the ability to hang in there? Now, right now, the line is sitting at 13.5 or 14, depending on the sports book you're looking at. 57.5 is the number. If you get it at 13.5, and I'm taking Alabama all day long. I don't think Cincinnati is going to be able to slow down Alabama. They're much more physical. I think Alabama's going to get to Rudder. He's going to absolutely have him running for his life. And Cincinnati, they've got some good players. They're going to play on Sunday. They don't have as many as Alabama does, and it's going to be a difficult grind. They're going to have to play an absolute perfect ball game, in my opinion, if Cincinnati's going to even sniff beating Alabama. And I think they can play a perfect game. Alabama can play a so-so game, and Alabama can still win by 10 points. But Desmond Ridder is going to be the guy that everyone's going to be looking at. He's a senior. He's a very good quarterback. Will probably play somewhere in the league. I don't know if he's going to be a high draft pick, but he'll play somewhere in the league. He's got the frame, 6'4". I think he's around 210, 215, something like that. And they've got some good receivers. They've got some good defensive backs. They've got one of the better defensive backfields in the country. But the problem is, will their defensive line be able to get any pressure on Young to make him make bad mistakes? Because you can have all the defensive backfield help and talent that you want on the planet. But if you're not getting any pressure to the quarterback, he is going to pick you apart, and that's where the game's won and lost. So my expectations is this. I'd probably hit the over. I think 57.5 is a very gettable over, and I would take Alabama. If you want a fun little tease, maybe tease down the over a little bit by 6 and take Alabama down to 6.5. I think you got a pretty good chance of covering that. Prediction on that, I'll go ahead and lay it on you. We are doing the show tomorrow night, but I'll go ahead and throw it out here. I've got Cincinnati losing this game, and in pretty big fashion. We'll say Alabama 45-21. And I don't even know if it'll be that close. But I'm going to give Cincinnati the benefit of the doubt. 45-21, so that hits the over and that covers the spread. Georgia, Michigan, that's a different deal. And I have gone back and forth on this like a pendulum on who I like more, Georgia or Michigan. If you would have asked me 24 hours before the SEC championship game, I'm telling you Georgia all day long, and I don't even think it's close. But then we had the SEC championship game, and Georgia got exposed by that secondary. And if they're not going to blitz, if they're going to continue to do what they did against Alabama, sit back there and let the damn quarterback pick you apart, Georgia's going to be in trouble. Now, they're not going to get run out of the building by Michigan. Michigan doesn't play that kind of offense. They're going to pound the ball. They're going to keep it. What they're going to try to do is win the line of scrimmage and win the time of possession. But Michigan up front, and that defense is going to be able to keep them in the ball game. That's why if I'm taking this game, I'm taking Michigan in the points, 7.5. It seems like a trick. It really does, because when you see a team getting 7.5, it means they want you to take Michigan because the book normally believes that Georgia's that much better. But watching the eye test, as good as Georgia's looked all year long, they looked awful in the SEC championship game. And Michigan has looked really, really good since that Michigan State loss. They have looked phenomenal. I think I would take Georgia in the points, 7.5. The over-under is 45.5. That is a tough one. That is a really tough one. I'm inclined to take the under, but I mean barely. So I'll go ahead and call it. I'll call Georgia winning the game, but Michigan covering the spread. Georgia wins it 24-20 in a slugfest. And thankfully, this is the night game, so people get off. They get a chance. We're going to get done with the show at 7 Eastern, and I'm hauling ass up to our local watering hole to watch it with some buddies, because I've been locked in houses all damn year. COVID, you name it. It seems like all of our plans always get messed up one way or the other. I'm going to go out and have a good time Friday night. And I'm glad this is the night game. If it was the other way around, if we were getting Alabama-Cincinnati as a 7:30 kickoff, it would be just suck. I still say these two games should have been on New Year's Day, and they should have just put one of the other bowl games on. Look, for years they had the Peach Bowl. For years, the Peach Bowl in Atlanta was your game. And I don't know why in the world that got changed. But you could have picked any of these games and put them on Friday night, and I think we would have been happy. I think we would have been really happy if any of these games were put on Friday night. If I'm picking any of these games to put of the ones that are remaining, if I'm setting it up, I would have done 2 games on Friday, and I would have kept the Sun Bowl because it's traditional, and I probably would have thrown. See, I wouldn't have done the Tax Slayer Bowl because that game was just, if it was the original teams, Wake Forest and A&M, that would have been a little fun to watch. But I think I probably would have went with a Oklahoma State Notre Dame Fiesta Bowl, put it on Friday night, and we would have had a blast. The college football playoffs don't belong on New Year's Eve. And they said a couple of years ago we wouldn't get it on New Year's Eve again for a long-ass time, and then bam, they hit it with us again. They hit it with us one more time. It is idiot. Bunch of idiots. All right, we're coming up on the end. I do want to hit a couple of things in the National Football League that are, we'll obviously do more of this on a tomorrow evening show. But first of all, the people that are putting death threats to Baker Mayfield because the Browns lost a football game, get a life. Get a freaking life. But the main thing I wanted to touch on that I wanted to end the show with is John Madden. John Madden passed a couple of days ago, and I haven't had a chance to really say my piece on it. And I've got more that I'm going to talk about tomorrow on the show. But John Madden, a guy that, by the way, everyone keeps saying he's a guy who never played football, but might have been the most influential player in the history of football. He did play football. He was on the practice squad as a I believe he was an offensive lineman for the Philadelphia Eagles in the late 50s. He played college at Cal Poly. So he did play football. He just ended up going into coaching because he wasn't that great at it. But he was a defensive coordinator for the Raiders. Then he was a head coach for the Raiders. He was the head coach for the Raiders for 10 seasons, won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 11, which was his crowning achievement. Of course, he was an AFL champion in 1967. That was when the Raiders, that was when he was a linebackers coach. He became the head coach a couple of years later, but it's 1967 was Super Bowl I. So it was when the Raiders, or maybe that was Super Bowl II, but the Raiders and Packers. So then he moved up and became head coach, and then, of course, we all know his broadcasting prowess. I think they said 11 Super Bowls. John Madden was an absolute class act. And I've got something that I'll share with y'all on the show tomorrow, but just want to kind of basically give our condolences and our respect to a guy that made NFL broadcasting. He made it for the everyman. I think a lot of people thought he was a dope. He was a bright guy. He was a really bright guy. He knew what he was doing. He was making the game accessible to a demographic of fans out there that just wanted to know the nuts and bolts of the NFL game, of the game of football. Nowadays, fans are more educated on the game of football than they've ever been. But when Madden came in as a broadcaster, he revolutionized television broadcasting. Came in 1979? And he went from 79 to 93 with CBS, and then went from with Fox until 2001. And then from Fox, it became ABC's Monday Night Football, and he went there until 2005. Then from there, he went to NBC Sports. Remember when NBC Sports took over the Sunday night game of the week? It was Madden, and it was Al Michaels. And that was until 2008. It feels like he's been gone so much longer, but 2008, I swear, when I first saw that he passed, I just watched his documentary. By the way, it's phenomenal. If you would have asked me how long he's been out of the game, I would have guessed 20 years. Because there's just been a void that has been left since Madden left the mic that nobody can replace. And he just really didn't want to do any of it. He really didn't want to do any of it. He got to a certain age and wanted to spend time with his wife, and you can understand that. But I think it's really cool how he did it. The fact that the guy never flew because he was terrified of flying, but how that made his job so much more interesting, because he would ride in that bus from point A to point B, get there in time for the following game. Didn't matter if a game was in San Francisco one week and New York the following week. They would make it. And he learned the lay of the land, meeting people. And I just think, to me, that is the dream job. If I could have one job and do something like that, where I was calling one game a week like that, and getting to ride in a bus from game to game, that would be the ultimate, because you would be able to get out and learn different things about different parts of the country. Now, obviously, me being a big baseball game, I'd prefer to do baseball, but I'm trying to think of how in the hell, if I was doing, we'll just take the Braves, for example, a Braves game in Atlanta on Sunday, and we've got to be in San Francisco for a Monday night game, I wouldn't be able to ride, in a bus. But if it was possible, if it was doable, I would do it the way Madden did it. Just incredible. I always envied that when I saw him do that, and I knew that the guy went from city to city. To hell with the game. Think about the different stories he could have told you about different rides. And I'm hoping someone chronicled it at some point, because that would be a hell of a read. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night, and we'll take you out to the ball game. We'll be back on live, 5 Eastern, YouTube Live, and, of course, we'll be in a couple of different cities around the CBS globe on Friday, 5 to 7. The whole gang is back tomorrow, so we shall see you.
Take me out to the ball game.